Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Suzy.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today I am super excited because the guest that we have, I met relatively at the beginning of our real estate journey.
hmm
And it was super cool because it happened by chance. So we attended the same real estate conference virtually, but I actually did not buy a ticket. One of the sponsors was like, "Hey, I have an extra ticket. Who wants it?" I was like, "Me." And that was literally the day before. But the fun thing about it was that if you joined the conference, you got to be a part of an accountability group. And this was almost like the first accountability group I had ever been a part of. And right when I got the email, I was super excited. I was like, okay, I'm in England. I have to try to pick the day and time perfectly. But like, what worked out so well was that, like, out of all the groups, masterminds, I don't know, weekly calls that I've been a part of, like, this one, which comprises of me, Joanna, Ashley, and our special guest, Annchen, it's like been so cool because like we've stuck through it for over a year and a half now. And we are super committed to each other. We finally got to meet each other in person, like at the investor conference. And so, like, it's actually really cool how I just happened to stumble into like a group with three other super amazing ladies. And so I am so happy that you're here with us today, Anshin. Thank you.
Wow, me too. And I had not heard that backstory. I didn't realize it was just totally by chance that you were in the group. Wow, the day before.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I felt like it was worth every penny of the extra, I don't know, $100 that we paid to have the VIP ticket that put us in the group. I mean, yeah, I've gotten so much value out of it, and I'm so happy to be here on your podcast today.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, my heart is just pew, 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 pew. And so, yeah.
Overflowing. That's
Yeah.
what that sound means. If you're not
Oh,
like
thank you, Michael.
well, before the show, we literally just chatted for like 20 minutes, and it's been amazing to
So,
get to know Anshin a little bit better. But I really want you, Anshin, to share with our adventurous family more about you and your background and like why you started investing in real estate, please, because it's amazing.
yeah. So for me, it started 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. Well, even before that, I graduated from college. I moved here to Durham, North Carolina to go to grad school. And I thought, should I buy a house? And I asked the smart adults, should I buy a house? And they said, well, you only want to buy a house if you know you're going to live somewhere for like 5 to 10 years. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know how long I'm going to be here. So I won't buy a house. And then 10 years later, I'm still here. Housing prices have like doubled. And I'm thinking, maybe that was bad advice. And I'm thinking, maybe there's a way to buy a house to live in, even if I don't know that I'm going to live in a place for a long
Mhm.
time. And I think, well, what if I can just buy a house that I know I can rent out if I move? And so then I Google, like, how do I know if a house is a good rental? And then I think probably the first three hits were like bigger pockets. And I
Well,
discovered this whole world of people who are more than just like making sure they can afford their mortgage, but are more like achieving financial freedom through real estate. And that has been my obsession ever since. So I spent, I don't know, a good probably 6 months just reading all the books and listening to all the podcasts. And funny enough, around the same time, I think my dad somehow picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so we were kind of like independently getting interested into the idea of
nice.
investing at the same time.
That's
And he was being, so we were kind of feeding off of each other. And he ended up being offered early retirement. And so he had some more time to kind of be boots on the ground and kind of invest into it. So we decided to kind of get into it together. And yeah, so we started with buying single family houses since a lot of people do. It's kind of what you understand. There's not as many zeros. So it's a little easier to be comfortable with buying single family houses. So we kind of started doing that. And we ended up, I guess, getting three or so in the first year that we were buying houses. And then, and then I guess this was around the time I met you, Suzy, that I ended up having to move to Maryland for my husband's job. And I bought a condo that was a kind of a fixer-upper. Like, you walked in there and you were in the 1980s. And it was COVID and there wasn't much else to do. I was in a new place. I didn't know anyone. I thought, I'll fix it up myself. And I about spent the next year doing that. And yeah, learning a lot. But in hindsight, I wish I had spent that time because that was 2020, 21 before we really saw prices skyrocket. I wish I had spent that time buying more houses, but I learned so much throughout the whole process so far. And now I'm kind of at the place where our goal was always, just to build a portfolio to achieve cash flow. And we thought start out with single families and then build up to small multis. And once we get enough to kind of have the retirement padding for my parents and then the money that I need to be financially free from, my job, then we'd be fine and we would just, I don't know, have fun and travel. But by the time I kind of finished renovating my condo, single family, like long-term rentals just weren't really working. Even where we were interested in buying, even like the duplexes and the small multis, we
Mm.
were making bids at like break even prices and we were getting far outbid. And I was just
Wow.
thinking, this is not going to work for us. And so now I'm pivoting into short-term rentals, which I kind of realize should have maybe been my passion all along, because hospitality is really exciting for me and design and all of that is really exciting for me. So I'm super excited to kind of start on this new path, but also kind of grateful for everything that led me to it, I guess, even though I maybe didn't kind of get the momentum and, the numbers that I wanted, I learned a lot.
Totally. Some things that like I love that you said that because like a lot of people discount it. So like one, you started like kind of being more interested right out of college. Like some people think that like they're too young to start or there's never an end. But then two, like when you started right out of college, your dad also realized like what Rich Dad Poor Dad was because he got the book. Like that's a huge spectrum in ages, right? And like that's a big deal because that means that you can start investing in real estate at any time of your life. Like it does not matter how old, how young, however you look at age you are, like there is always a spot for you. Somebody said in a different podcast that there was $7 trillion of real estate on the market.
Yeah, like
That is a
oof.
lot. There's
Yeah.
no room
Yeah.
for all
Yeah.
of us in this journey, you know? It's just for figuring out like what really works best for you. So like that's super cool.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, no, and I think for my parents, it's been fun. My mom always talked about how, retirement sounds fun, but she never wants to be bored. And so now, and it's been especially fun just kind of like working together to have this like project to work on with them. And I guess one thing that's extra motivating to me is that I really want to, I guess, make them proud, in a really big way and kind of show them what can be done and to like really help them to get to a place where they feel like they can do whatever they want in retirement and, just kind of not hold anything back and just really kind of help them achieve the life beyond their dreams. And that's been incredibly motivating. And we've been having fun working together through the pluses and the minuses, really.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even going off another thing that you said, sorry, and then I'll give like Michael maybe a second to talk. But
It's okay.
I read a statistic and it was like once people retire, especially men is a like higher percentage than women, but it was almost like 75% of men, because they don't have a plan afterwards, they become like deeply depressed because like we've been working our whole lives, right? I mean, like it doesn't matter like if you call schoolwork, like all of the above. I mean, we're born literally being like, okay, it's time to walk or talk. Like we are ingrained to work towards something no matter what. So when it comes to retirement, we're just supposed to like sit. That's what so many people say, like, oh, relax. But like
Sit and watch
nobody
TV.
yeah,
Yeah,
nobody
sounds
talks
bored.
about what we're supposed to do after that. So like that's super cool too, because like you give a new life to your parents, even if you don't see it that way. And I think a lot of people, if they started looking at it like in regards to their parents, right? Because I did the same thing. I mean, it took 5 investments for my dad to finally trust me, but I was like, there is more life to be had. Like we can do this together. So that's super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to kind of like mention is like what's really cool is like when you're telling your intro story about like you Googled about like,
Yes, that was
you
huge.
know, how I forget exactly what you're Googling, but like how can you buy a house so that makes sense, whatever. And you found bigger pockets, whatever. And that's something very similar to Susie and I. Like when we first heard about real estate, we were like, okay, well, we had this plan that we're gonna buy, like save up and buy a mountain property with one of our friends. And that was me, our first like real estate purchase would be like short-term rental, whatever. And then I started Googling like, how do you like calculate the numbers for a short-term rental? Something like that. And like bigger pockets popped up, right? And then I got
Right.
sucked in. I was like, Susie, you gotta check this out. And it's like this huge platform. And we just like went from there. And that's like kind of like it was like rocket fuel to a rocket, if you will, which is really cool. So I know you talked about like looking at long-term rentals and stuff like that. Like what made you want to pivot to short-term rentals?
Well, yeah, because we've always been about just achieving that cash flow number. And it got to a point where we couldn't underwrite anything that was really cash flowing for long-term rentals for us. And I had always had this like side interest in short-term rentals. It was always, I'm gonna buy a fourplex and then I'll get, my Airbnb property or whatever, because that'll be the icing on the cake. But then I started to realize, I guess, Avery Carl pops up on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I think, okay, that's really the way to get cash flow, and I need to get in on it, and maybe I shouldn't, make that be the next thing I do. Maybe that should be the thing that I do now.
Mhm.
And so that's pretty much what has kind of caused me to go that way. Yeah.
I like it. And have you ever thought about just doing like you're looking at like you said duplexes and small multis and stuff like that? You ever think about just converting those into short-term rentals, what you're looking at?
The long-term rentals that we have, or yeah, the ones that we were underwriting. I guess with the short-term rental, you need a certain type of property that's you kind of underwrite them differently, I
Mhm.
guess. And in one of the areas, another thing that's big for me that I've kind of learned about myself, and that's kind of what the process of the past few years I think has been just kind of learning about myself, learning what I'm comfortable with, learning what I'm good at, learning what works for me and what works for kind of me and my parents as a team. And one of the things I've learned is that I do kind of need to see and touch a property and like feel pretty good about it. And so that kind of restrict the markets that we were looking in. The primary one being where my parents live, because I figure they're retired, they're boots on the ground, they have the time to go and like look at all these properties and evaluate. Kind of the certain properties we were looking at, I don't know would work as well for the short-term
Gotcha.
rentals. So that's why I'm kind of looking at in a little bit different market for that sense. But now since I've been back in Raleigh and the Raleigh Durham area, it's just been amazing getting plugged back into the community here and seeing all the opportunity that's available here. And so I know that I think I can find my rocket fuel, I guess, in the relationships from the other people here that can really help me succeed in this area with the short-term rentals.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Have you ever considered like medium-term rentals?
For sure. I mean, I was just listening to, I think, the latest Bigger Pockets on the Market episode. They interviewed Ziana McIntyre and Sarah Weaver, who just came up with a medium term rental book. And I'm just like, oh, I have to get that. And I'm definitely considering it. So the house that my husband and I just bought in June, it's in a really pretty good location in Durham. It's very close to downtown and very close to Duke campus. And I think for that reason, Duke has so many med centers. And for that reason, I think that our house would work really well as a medium term rental. I've kind of finally convinced my husband to get into the house hacking strategy. The best I can do with him is buy a single family and move every year and rent out the one, that we just
Yeah.
left, because he's not so much into the renting out a room or living in a duplex. He would maybe consider, but that's been kind of harder to find here. But so we basically bought this house thinking that next year when we can get another, owner occupant loan, then we'll move out of this house and we'll put this one either as a short term or a medium term rental. And I think we'll do really well with it. And kind of another thing I think for him was, and I know we've talked about this in our group a lot, Suzy, about just like getting your spouse on board. Cause I think I had expressed how I'm kind of jealous of you and Michael, how like you're kind of in it together and you have each other to bounce ideas off of. And I really kind of miss that. And I mean, Peter is brilliant and I feel like he would be so helpful in like strategizing with me. But I got to respect that he has his own dreams. But for me, I think another one of the incentives for me getting into real estate was I had all this money sitting in a bank or in the stock market, and I was just not comfortable with it all kind of being in the same place. And I knew I needed to diversify. And I think Peter's younger than me, but he's now just kind of starting to get to that point where like, okay, like what do I do with this money? And you look at the stock market right now and it's just like, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
So, as we go along, real estate is looking more and more appealing to him. And
That's exciting.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, I thank you for kind of all your help, like helping me kind of respond to some of his objections as we went along, I think have been really helpful. But mainly, I think he just needed time. And I don't know if I mentioned this on here, but I ended up buying my first short term rental property in the mountains. And part of that was I know he really loves the mountains. If I buy a house in the mountains, then, I can take him there and be like, look, real estate is fun. So
Wow.
that's been part of it too. Yeah.
Where in the mountains, like Gatlinburg or
So it's in North Carolina. So kind
okay.
of on the North Carolina side of the Smokies. It's not officially the Smokies. I think it's close to what's called the Pisgah National Forest, but it's a beautiful area. There's a lot of state parks. There's like a lot of waterfalls. It's great visiting. We've been having some trouble with our contractor working on the renovations, which Suzy has heard all about. But I just, every meeting I go to, everyone I bring it up with, this is just part of real estate investing. Like it's going to happen. And so I've learned to kind of just have the right mindset about it, I guess, and just do everything I can to solve the problem as I go, but not let it kind of defeat me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How are you seeing the current market, like with it, increasing interest rates and stuff like that? Like, are you seeing like a softening of the prices now in the areas where you want to buy short-term rentals, or what?
Yeah. So at least in my local Raleigh Durham market, and since I'm still working on the contractor issues on my current one, I'm not heavily shopping like right at this minute, but I'm trying to stay in touch with what's going on and talking to the agents in the Raleigh Durham area. What I've heard is that, I mean, the first offer we put a house on in March, there were 60 other offers.
Wow.
And so I've heard that, we're not getting that anymore, but there's still more than one offer. So the prices aren't really softening too terribly. And people here, there's kind of a non-refundable due diligence pay to play kind of fee when you put an offer on the house. And those are still really high. So I think it hasn't quite softened yet. I think sellers are still seeing that there are some comps from earlier this year that are high. They can still get the appraisals. And so they're not really coming down yet. But everyone thinks that that's coming in a few months.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping, that's when I'll be ready to buy, or that's kind of my plan, is to hopefully get in at some better prices later on, even though I don't expect the interest rates to be good, but you can always refinance out in a couple of years.
Yes. So, like, I have a really fun quote that I just heard and I really like saying it now. So you marry the property and you date
Yeah.
the rate. That makes me
Date the
really
rate.
happy inside. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that
Great. Sounds risky.
like you can refinance, you can do something different with it, right? Like you don't marry the rate and date the property.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and I just love what you said. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're stuck with that price forever. So hopefully this will present some opportunities for us to get that price lower.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. We'd love to, Susie and I would love to break into, well, we have a bunch of, obviously, I'm sure we have like 8 Airbnbs in Arlington, but we'd
Yeah.
love to get like another short-term rental in the mountains. Cause like, I feel like that's the great place. Because looking at the occupancy in there, it's just like, yes, it does slow down in January, February, March timeframe,
But I
but
can
you
go
still
then.
have a significant
Yeah.
amount of people still renting it. And it's like a year-round vacation place, and it's just amazing. So
Yeah. So
Anyway,
the mountains around here, you've got the summertime, it's just beautiful, mountain biking, fly fishing, all of that, whitewater rafting. But then the wintertime, there's ski areas here too, which I mean, it's not Colorado skiing, but you can slide down a hill. So
yeah,
and people do that. Yeah. Yeah. So no, I'm super excited about it. And kind of my dream all along has been, to own properties, places that then I can visit too and invite all of my family and all of my friends.
The friends from Invest Her.
Exactly.
And there's
Ashley's already invited herself to my property. So it's happening already. But then the more you talk to people who are kind of doing that, they're like, it's hard to visit your own property because it's not a vacation, because you just see everything that needs to be done. And I know that's me too, but in either case, either it's going to be spinning off the cash flow that I can rent whatever place I want, or I'll go check out my place, So I'm excited about that for my future for sure.
I love that.
Yeah, one of my next up will be a beach property.
Here.
I like tan lines.
Me too.
Right? What has been like your, I guess, greatest story and your worst story with real estate?
Oh gosh. That's funny. So I immediately thought it was kind of like 2 negatives, but one of them is maybe the greatest because it wasn't actually a downfall to me. But I don't know if I told you this story, but I'll just tell it because it's my funnest story to tell. Is the very first house I bought, I did a renovation and had a decent experience with the contractor on that one. So we had decided, some of the shingles were out and we were like, we could repair or replace. We decided to replace the roof. And then I guess like a couple days after I had, kind of communicated that to my contractor, I get a message, hey, the roof's been replaced. And I'm like, great, we're really chugging along. Yeah. And then they say, on the house across the street. And I'm like, what? They literally replaced the roof on the wrong house.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was my house was 419 and that house was 414 and someone had like written it down and not closed the 9 or
Yeah.
something. But they replaced the roof on the wrong house.
The
And
people
so
living there are like,
so it was vacant.
oh my God.
But I wanted to call that landlord and be like, "Hey, I just got you a new roof. You're welcome. How much do you want to sell me that house for?"
Right.
Right? Luckily, it was a small house, but unfortunately, the contractor kind of had to eat that cost. And then I was kind of worried about like I have a very sad, very angry guy working on my roof the next day, but it turned out pretty well. So that's been a crazy story.
That's a crazy
That
story.
is
Yeah.
wild.
So yeah, now it's like next time I'm replacing a roof, I'm gonna draw like a big red X on it and be like, this
Yeah.
one. It's true working on my house. I don't know how they were like, let's just go to this empty one across the street. I don't know.
I mean,
But
you hear the same stories of like people getting their knee operated on and like they operate on the wrong knee, right? It's like
oh
gonna
my
draw an
God.
X on the one knee.
Right, exactly. You can never be too careful. And that's certainly something that I've learned. I'm always kind of tempted to like cut corners and just think, oh, this will work out. But there's some things you just shouldn't kind of take chances on.
You have to like
Um,
over communicate. It's like, yeah, it's just, oh my God, that's so crazy.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
going off of what Michael said, like over communicating, like is huge in real estate because I've just learned with vendors now that like what I think it looks fine, they think looks great. Like even with those words alone, right? Like over communicate with your lender, all the vendors, everybody in the circle. Like you will never not over communicate enough.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like you're repeating yourself and you're super annoyed, then you're not communicating enough.
That's me.
Kinda what I've
I am
learned.
the over
He is the
communicator. I
over-
repeat myself over and over. To a
Yeah.
point where Susie's like, you don't have to explain it 6 different ways. I'm like, yes, I want to make sure that it's actually understood.
But I'm like, but not to me.
Yeah.
It's so important. It's so
I will
important.
literally stand there with somebody and explain something 6 different ways, and they're like, "Yeah, shut up." Yeah. So, anyways,
But
that's
I don't know. I would call that my greatest story. And then I guess like
that's a bigger
the
story.
That is.
right? I know. Yeah, thanks for giving me the chance to tell it. But and then I guess the worst is like Suzy's kind of heard about it, but I bought this condo that, I worked on and I'm probably not going to buy a condo again because now I'm going through this whole issue where the person downstairs smokes and it gets into my unit and my, I had a tenant who complained of health issues and asked to break her lease and I wasn't gonna, force her to stay there if she felt
Yeah.
like it was causing her health problems. And so I'm doing everything I can currently to fight that and, make it a good place to live, but it's been a struggle.
That sucks. Yeah.
But like
Okay.
tell us about the HOA meetings.
Right. So what I decided to do is, at first I sent some, I communicated with the property management. So there's a HOA board of directors that are actually the owners, and there's a property management company that kind of runs things. So, and that's who you communicate with. And I got a couple emails back from them, but it was clear it wasn't really going to go anywhere. And so I thought, okay, how can I really make an impact here? And I decided that I needed to send a postcard to every single other person in the complex to just, I'm sure other people have this problem. And the more people I have kind of on my side, more or less, the better chance we have of kind of making progress. And so I got 6 responses back and the board meeting where this was discussed was last week. And at least 3 of those people went to the meeting. One of them drove all the way from North Carolina, just like me, because it was such a big issue for her and she was so passionate in kind of getting it solved. And they were very responsive to us. And I think that I like to think at least that, my efforts had a lot to do with it. And I had so many people kind of come back and thank me for taking that initiative because it had been such a huge problem for them for years. And so hopefully it looks like we're moving towards getting smoking banned in the community, and which would be, I think, a great outcome for the health of the entire community. But in any case, I'm just good to know that I'm doing everything that I can to kind of solve the problem for my tenants and for the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that strategic thinking alone like blows my mind, right? Because so many people like they have a problem and they think there's just a wall, but like there are so many ways to go around it. But like you don't necessarily have to come up with them on your own. Like there are other like platforms, forums, whatever, where you can also ask for help. But like I think it's super cool that you went out of your way to do that. Cause even me thinking about it, I was like, never would I think about sending a postcard. So like that is it's just amazing. But like the 2 spectrums, right? Or like Somebody else got a roof for free. Potentially have a resident who is saying that they have health problems. Like there's so much goodness in between though, that's what makes real estate like so, I guess, wonderful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
no.
It's solving problems,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, is really what it comes down to. And I'm trying to find a balance of, you know, kind of respecting my own time and not taking a lot of these things on myself, which is something that I'm always working on. But I want to be providing people a good place to live, you know, and I want to be doing everything I can to do that. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do it halfway. So,
Which
Love
is
that.
what I love about you.
Thanks, Suzy.
I mean, what's really cool,
and
even if it doesn't get banned, like smoking doesn't get banned, at least maybe they force him or her to smoke outside, right?
yeah, they talked about a designated area or something,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
you know, there's a way to kind of meet in the middle, sort of.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see.
yeah.
We'll need an update.
Yeah. And what I appreciate about you, Suzy, is I come into our accountability calls and I'm in my head about how terrible the situation is. And then you kind of bring the perspective of, you know, well, actually, it's not that bad and you're working to get through it. And I mean, that's just been so valuable to me. And I got to say that probably my favorite part about getting into real estate investing is just kind of like meeting all these amazing other investors and becoming a part of this like super cool community of people doing really cool things. And I've even thought to myself that if I don't get to the point where I replace my income and achieve financial freedom soon, which I will, but even if I don't, it's been so worth all of my time and energy, just like all the things I've learned from all the amazing people I've met, the books I've had recommended to me, just kind of all the like success and personal development sort of kind of secrets and practices that I've learned has just been so uplifting. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah,
I
the
love that.
personal development is a great part.
Mhm.
It is.
Absolutely. Well, Annchen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're moving towards the end of the show, which brings us to the Adventurers 4. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. So if you're ready, Annchen, we will do this.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So the first question we have for you is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
It would be so much harder to say where not because I pretty much want to go everywhere. Lately it's been Bermuda because I live on the East Coast and it's just like tantalizingly close. And I love islands and it sounds great. So I've been like dropping hints to Peter and one day we'll get there.
Yeah.
That you will.
Yeah.
I like it.
Instead of
So yeah.
So then second question is, what is one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging your real estate investing to achieve it?
For me, it's always just been spending more time with family and friends. And part of that vision is just being able to just rent a place and go on vacation with, you know, all my aunts and uncles and cousins. And so whether it's again through owning that house where I can bring everybody and, you know, and even be able to, you know, I guess help everyone financially basically, but just being able to like get everyone together is so motivating to me. And yeah, I guess that's what keeps my drive.
I love it.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. So the third question we have for you is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
That one's got to be just like networking and getting to know people. Yeah. So I got to know you, Suzy, over the course of a year or so. And at that point, I was very comfortable in investing in one of your syndications because, you know, I'd really gotten to know your work ethic, your drive, and most of all, you know, your integrity. And if you're going to invest passively, number one, you have to vet the operator. You have to know that they're going to be looking out for you. And the best way to do that is just to get to know people. And you get all kinds of gifts along the side too. So
No,
yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
So then our fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
So for me, it's really mental health research. So I work in mental health research and it feels like we're in the dark ages a lot. And so what I would say is just fund more mental health research. And that's just not like funneling a paycheck to me, but more just like there is so much that we have to do and such a huge impact. Mental health is a huge burden to our society, even just kind of understanding, you know, the problems and also helping people find treatment and afford treatment. I think we have a long way to go.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I do too. That was beautiful. Thank
That
you.
was Well, thank you so much, Annchen. Annchen, has been an absolute pleasure. If people want to reach out to you and learn more about you or find out or just get in contact with you, how would they do so?
So I'm on social media, mostly Facebook, trying to get more on Instagram, but it's just Annchen Knodt, Knodt. Well, I guess we'll have that in the show notes because
I will.
it's always impossible to spell my name to people. But yeah, since it's unique enough, I can just have first name, last name on all the platforms. So yeah, would love to chat with anyone who's interested in learning more about, what I've done or anything at all.
No, and I mean, please do reach out because Anshin, like the amount of detail and work that she's put into the rentals that she's underwrote or ended up putting under contract or even just put offers on, like just blows my mind, right? Because we come to every call and it's like, Anshin's like, well, I did these 47 things. And I'm like, cool. I ate lunch. I mean, but it's so like, I shouldn't put myself down, but that's totally a different story. But like, please reach out to her. Like a lot of value will come from her just with the conversation. So please do reach out and I will have all of your socials in the show notes. Yes. So
Not
thank
easy
you.
to say.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Suzy and Michael. It's been a blast.
Absolute pleasure, Annchen. Thank you so much. And it's great to get to know you a little better. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!